What credit then goes to Micheal Carrick? Because it does, in the last 2 weeks, look like a team transformed.
Yeah, it does.
Micheal Carrick has made Manchester United unplayable.
United now looking for a winner, needing a winner. Can Šeško provide it? He can!
9 points from 9. 3 games, 3 wins. And for the first time in a long time, this doesn't feel like a new manager bounce. It feels like control.
Micheal, that was, in the end, a real throwback to an old Manchester United, the one that you played in, the celebrations in front of the Stretford End, last-minute winners.
I think it's a special place, this, and it does special things.
Since Micheal Carrick took charge, Manchester United haven't just been winning, they've been imposing themselves. Different scorers, different game states, late pressure, setbacks, disturbing moments, and still United don't panic. They slow the game down, reset, and bend it back to their will. Casemiro is arriving like a striker. Bruno is creating every single week. Šeško is deciding games off the bench. Cunha is linking everything together. Even when Fulham erased a 2-goal lead at Old Trafford, United found a 94th minute winner, not through desperation, but clarity. This isn't about forcing players into a rigid philosophy. Carrick has flipped the script, building a system around what these players actually do best. This is why this version of Manchester United might be far more dangerous than people realise, and why this run may only be the beginning. Micheal Carrick has found a system that suits the players, rather than forcing the players to suit a system. And that single difference is why Manchester United suddenly look calm, sharp, and frankly, hard to play against. Let's be absolutely clear about something first. Carrick didn't walk into a squad desperately lacking quality or talent. United have match winners scattered everywhere across the pitch. What they didn't have, not consistently anyway, was a repeatable, reliable way of playing that made everyone's job simpler and clearer. Before this tactical change, you'd watch United and see genuinely good spells of football, immediately followed by completely confusing spells where nothing made sense. They'd score a great goal, then suddenly start defending like a team genuinely unsure whether they should be pressing high, dropping deep, or just trying to survive the next few minutes. The football wasn't always terrible to watch. It was just deeply uncertain. And uncertainty is exactly what turns comfortable leads into nervously defended games where anything can happen. Carrick's appointment, confirmed on January 13th, 2026, on a contract until the end of the season, instantly changed the entire framing of United's situation. This wasn't save the season with good vibes and passion. It was a clear mandate to stabilise the structure and get this talented squad performing like an actual cohesive unit again. Now look at what's happened since he arrived. 9 points from 9 available, 3 games, 3 wins, and crucially, not against soft, easy opposition either. United's first 2 victories came against Manchester City and then league leaders Arsenal, before the dramatic Old Trafford thriller against Fulham made it 3 straight wins. And here's the key detail that makes this run feel genuinely real rather than temporary. It hasn't been the same script every time. In one match, they've looked controlled, composed, and ruthless. In another, they've had to dig in defensively and grind it out. And against Fulham, they lived through exactly the kind of late chaos that used to completely break them. 2-0 up and cruising, suddenly pegged back late, and still somehow finding a 94th minute winner. That Fulham game is actually the perfect before versus after snapshot of what's changed. United scored first through Casemiro with a well-worked goal, then doubled their advantage through Matheus Cunha's clinical finish. When Fulham hit back late, first with a penalty, then with a genuine stoppage-time equaliser, Old Trafford had every reason to brace for another one of those familiar, painful collapses we've seen so many times before. But instead of panicking and losing all shape, United kept playing with clear intention and belief. Bruno Fernandes still had the composure and clarity to create one more decisive moment in the 94th minute, and Benjamin Šeško still had the ice-cold composure to finish it off when it mattered most. This is exactly what a properly player-suited system looks like in practice. Clear roles where players know instinctively where the next pass is coming from and where the defensive cover will be if the attack breaks down. Simpler relationships on the pitch, where midfielders aren't constantly guessing distances and angles, wide players aren't left isolated and stranded, and defenders aren't living in desperate emergency mode during every single transition. Game state maturity, where even when the scoreline shifts dramatically and emotions run high, the team's fundamental behaviour doesn't collapse along with it. And the league table reflects this transformation clearly. That dramatic win over Fulham moved United up into 4th place on 41 points, with momentum that suddenly looks like genuine top 4 form, rather than a desperate scramble just to stay in the race. So when people try to dismiss this as just another new manager bounce that'll fade soon enough, that Fulham match is your definitive answer. A temporary bounce doesn't survive that kind of emotional swing and pressure. A bounce doesn't help you regain control and composure after conceding late and feeling momentum shift completely. Real structure does. Real clarity does. Real belief in a system does. That's exactly why the next chapter matters so much. Because once you actually see what Carrick has specifically changed and how his approach is deliberately designed around this squad's genuine strengths rather than some abstract ideal, the unplayable talk stops sounding like exaggerated hype and starts sounding like a genuine warning to the rest of the Premier League. The first thing Michael Carrick did when he arrived wasn't try to invent some completely new version of Manchester United from scratch. He decluttered them, stripped away the confusion and gave them clarity. The shape itself is the headline, a 4-2-3-1 formation that can quickly and smoothly drop into a 4-4-2 when United don't have the ball. But the real change, the thing that actually matters, is what that structure allows. Clearer spacing across the pitch, far fewer defensive isolations where players get caught out, and a rhythm that tells everyone when to press aggressively, when to hold position, and where the next pass should naturally go. Against Arsenal, the starting point was a clean, recognisable 4-2-3-1 formation. But within that simple shape, Carrick leans heavily into what you might call role logic, giving players clear jobs rather than rigid positions. The double pivot sits at the heart of everything. Casemiro and Kobbie Mainoo protect the centre of the pitch first and foremost, then feed the next line forward when the opposition press gets attracted to the ball. Tactical analysis notes how much more comfortable and secure United look with that familiar reference point anchoring everything, and how they can drop seamlessly into a deep 4-4-2 shape to completely block the middle when needed. Bruno Fernandes, playing as the 10, isn't glued to one specific zone. He drifts intelligently across the pitch to pull a marker out of position and open up those crucial half spaces for teammates to run into. The striker role stays deliberately flexible. Bryan Mbeumo can function as a hybrid number 9, drifting wide to manipulate centre-backs and free up central lanes for those dangerous third-man runs from midfield. So even though it looks simple on a basic tactical board, it plays like a shape specifically built to trigger repeatable rotations and movements rather than forcing rigid positional play. This is where Carrick's United really start to look properly coached and organised. In the Arsenal game, Diogo Dalot repeatedly moved inside from his fullback position while the winger held width on the touchline, creating those extra central numbers between the lines that are so valuable. That gave United a clear way to escape Arsenal's pressure without forcing risky one-on-one dribbles out wide. You see the same fundamental principle across multiple matches. Carrick often builds what becomes a 3-2-5 shape in possession, with one fullback advancing high for width while the other tucks inside to form part of that back three and stabilise what's called rest defence, the security structure you keep while attacking. And here's the key detail in what happens ahead of that base. When Arsenal pressed in their 4-4-2 shape, locking onto United's pivot and trying to choke the middle early, United responded by deliberately adding more midfield numbers between the lines and using short, sharp central combinations to progress the ball forward, not hopeful long diagonals that might work. When the ball finally arrived in those dangerous pockets of space, the next action became decisive. Slip a runner through, draw a defender out, shoot on goal, or reset and recycle possession intelligently. This is exactly why individual players suddenly look sharper and more confident. They're receiving the ball in spaces with support angles already built in around them, not receiving in isolation and then desperately hoping someone appears to help. A genuinely clever Carrick wrinkle is how his wide players attack the inside lanes rather than just hugging the touchline. Tactical breakdowns point out that both Amad Diallo and Patrick Dogu make these intelligent arcing runs into central areas that confuse midfield references chances, and create numerical advantages. That specific movement directly contributed to United's threat against Arsenal and made them so difficult to mark. Analysis describes the same general mechanic appearing. Repeatedly, Dalot stepping inside, Fernandes roaming freely, and Dogu making those inside runs from his nominal left-wing role, all deliberately designed to load the centre with attackers without ever losing natural width. So opponents face a genuine pick-your-poison dilemma every time. Follow the winger inside and leave the fullback lane completely exposed, or hold your width and let United receive the ball comfortably between your lines. Either way, United are no longer easy to funnel into predictable areas and shut down. Carrick isn't running some constant high press that exhausts his players. The plan is much smarter. Compact first, trigger the press second. Analysis explicitly notes he's not a coach who encourages relentless high pressing, and observers expect to see a mid to low block approach early in his time in charge. Detailed breakdowns show how United, once the game state demanded it, defended in an extremely compact low block with all their midfield units tight together, often keeping all 10 outfield players inside their own defensive third to force Arsenal wide into crosses and corners rather than central penetration. The pressing trigger is the modern Carrick version of wait then pounce. Wait patiently for the heavy touch, the backwards body shape, or the risky square pass across the pitch, then collapse quickly with short distances maintained between your units. Tactical analysis of the Derby win describes United defending in that organised 4-4-2 block and only pressing when City's players entered genuinely vulnerable moments, rather than chasing shadows and wasting energy. Against Arsenal, the story wasn't about possession dominance, it was about genuine game control through intelligent structure. Match data lists United with just 41% possession and only 0.87 expected goals, yet they scored 3 actual goals and were described as clinically decisive. 3 goals from just 3 shots on target. That's what happens when you defend the middle well enough to survive sustained pressure spells. You build attacking patterns that consistently get the ball into the same high-value pockets, and you have runners arriving from organised positions rather than hoping. And this translates directly to why people keep calling them unplayable right now. Carrick has made United a team that can genuinely win in multiple different game states, dominating moments with the ball and creating chances, then suffocating opponents in moments without it, without completely changing their identity every 10 minutes. That consistency, that clarity of purpose, is what makes teams truly dangerous. Carrick's system is doing something that every genuinely elite side needs. It's turning good individual players into reliable, repeatable patterns. And once that happens, confidence stops being purely emotional. It becomes structural, embedded in how the team functions. You can see it clearly in the way United's biggest names are producing, and in the way the supporting cast suddenly look like they know exactly where they belong on the pitch. With Carrick in charge, Bruno Fernandes isn't being asked to play safe and protect possession. He's being asked to be useful, and there's a genuine difference between those two things. The numbers back it up convincingly. Fernandes has 10 Premier League assists this season, with 8 of those coming away from Old Trafford, a remarkable split that's been tracked as he pushes toward an away assists record. But the more important detail is how those assists are actually happening. Under Carrick, Bruno is consistently getting the ball in zones, where his very next action can hurt you, set pieces that create dangerous first contact, like the delivery for Casemiro against Fulham. Early crosses after a teammate wins a 1-versus-1 duel out wide, and that trademark second phase pass when defenders think the immediate danger has been cleared. That's exactly how the Fulham winner happens. Bruno beats his marker on the outside and delivers the decisive ball for that dramatic 94th minute finish. So it's not just raw output, it's repeatable output, created by a role that genuinely fits him perfectly. The genuinely fun part about Casemiro right now is that he's somehow doing both jobs simultaneously. Yes, he's still screening defensively, still protecting the middle of the pitch, but Carrick is also timing his forward movements so precisely that he arrives as a genuine surprise threat, not as a tactical gamble. League statistics show Casemiro with 5 goals, from just 3.65 expected goals, which is the cleanest way to describe what you've been seeing. He's finishing chances above expectation. And in the Fulham game, his influence is basically the entire match narrative. He scores the opening goal, then produces the assist for Cunha to make it 2-0. 0. That's Carrick ball in a nutshell. Midfielders don't just cover and protect, they actively contribute because the spacing and security behind them is finally stable enough to let them push forward. Benjamin Šeško is rapidly becoming the perfect Carrick-era weapon, a striker who can completely change the last 20 minutes without forcing the team to change its entire identity. He's already built a moment-maker reputation this season, even earning Player of the Match Week honours for a performance where he scored 2 goals in just 10 minutes against Burnley. Then against Fulham, he does it in the most ruthless way imaginable. An earlier chance hits the woodwork frustratingly, and he still has the ice-cold composure to slam home the winner in stoppage time. That matters, because it tells you United aren't relying on just one route to goals anymore. They can start strong, they can manage difficult periods, and they can finish games with a completely different striking profile up top. Matheus Cunha is absolutely thriving because Carrick's structure finally gives him exactly what his game needs: nearby options and support. He's not just a goal scorer, he's the crucial link between Bruno's invention and the team's forward running. In the Fulham match, his goal comes from that exact mechanism. Casemiro creates the opportunity, Cunha attacks the space intelligently, and the finish is decisive. And after the Arsenal win, Cunha explicitly credited Carrick for building a new togetherness in the group, which is really another way of saying roles are clearer, relationships on the pitch are tighter, and the team genuinely behaves like a unit now. A huge part of this surge is what's happening out on the wings, not just in dribbles and crosses, but in intelligent decision-making. Amad Diallo has been singled out as a standout threat down the right in the Fulham win, constantly asking difficult questions with direct running and perfect timing. And that wide threat changes absolutely everything. It pins fullbacks, opens up those crucial half spaces for Bruno, and gives United a reliable exit strategy when pressure builds in midfield. Behind the wingers, the fullback roles are designed to support rather than complicate things. One side can overlap to maintain width and stretch the defence. The other can tuck inside to help rest defence and protect against transitions, meaning United don't get ripped apart every single time an attack breaks down. This is the part casual viewers completely miss. Carrick has deliberately made United's defending less dramatic and chaotic. When the spacing is right, centre-backs aren't forced into constant emergency duels and last-ditch challenges. Harry Maguire looks steadier because he's defending. Shorter distances with better support. Lisandro Martinez can step aggressively into challenges knowing there's proper cover behind him. And with Luke Shaw and Diogo Dalot supported by a much more disciplined midfield platform, those wide spaces stop feeling like open doors for opponents to exploit. That's also why United can actually survive games where opponents have more possession. They're not scrambling desperately, they're set and organised. Here's the reason this Carrick run looks genuinely scalable rather than temporary. The system has 2 distinct gears and both make tactical sense. First, in big games against elite opposition, United don't need to dominate possession to dominate outcomes. Coverage notes that the 3-game winning run includes victories over both Manchester City and Arsenal. Clear proof they can defend in organised structure and still hurt you decisively on the break. That's the crucial travel skill. Compact distances between units, clean transitions, and enough quality up top to finish the biggest moments. Second, against low blocks, the real test for any system, the early signs are genuinely encouraging. Low blocks demand patience, set-piece quality, and repeatable chance creation. Fulham serves as a useful preview because even when the game got messy late, United still created that decisive wide overload that produced the winner. Exactly the kind of action you need when teams sit deep and you're searching for one clean opening. The next step is consistency, fewer late game management slips, and more calm, controlled possession in the final third when opponents are completely locked in defensively. But the foundation is clearly there, and that's the crucial point. Carrick hasn't built some fragile tactical idea that'll collapse under pressure. He's built a genuine framework, stars producing at their highest level, supporting roles finally making sense, and a team that can win genuinely different types of matches. That versatility, that clarity of purpose across the squad is what separates good teams from great ones. And right now, United look like they're making that leap. This version of Manchester United isn't built on chaos or emotion anymore, it's built on clarity. Under Michael Carrick, the system fits the players, the roles make sense, and the team can win in different game states. Big games, tight games, late games. They don't panic, they don't abandon structure, they stay in control. There's still work to do. Game management, defensive lapses, consistency. But the foundation is real. And if this structure keeps evolving, this run won't be remembered as a bounce. It'll be remembered as the moment Manchester United became dangerous again.